Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Alex Khojikian, and he is the Deputy City Manager for the City of Redwood City. Alex, welcome back.
Thank you again for having me here.
Before we jump into neighborhood associations, I do want you to give a little explanation as to what the Deputy City Manager does.
So my role as Deputy City Manager encompasses a number of areas, including the communications activities for the city, so any of the newsletters, the social media posts, press releases that go out. Additionally, strategic planning, so the different strategic initiatives that the City Council has put forth for the city and the vision, and really making sure that city services align with those strategic initiatives. Additionally, community engagement is a big part of the job title of Deputy City Manager and the work that we do, going out and working with our neighborhood associations, and then also working on high-level council policy as well.
Right. And I should explain to our viewers that you and I already had a segment where we were talking about Redwood City's minimum wage ordinance that has been in effect and will be phased in over the next 2 years to reach the $15 minimum wage standard. If you are at all, or if I'm going to say to our viewers, if anyone is interested in that, please go back to the Penn TV website and look up that interview. It is a great piece of information to understand about minimum wage, and if you are a small business in the city of Redwood City, and even the neighboring communities are all also adopting local minimum wage laws as well. Please look at that. But today we're talking about neighborhood associations. The reason why, it is actually one of the City Council's strategic initiatives that you were talking about to improve upon. So before we jump into neighborhood associations, just give us a high-level view of the council's strategic initiative so we know how this fits in.
So the main area that the neighborhood associations fall into, the strategic initiative itself, is communications and community building.
Right.
And so our neighborhood associations are a big part of that initiative. And the history of Redwood City, just in community engagement, it's part of the DNA of the organization and the community as a whole. This goes back probably 3-4 decades, actually. And neighborhood associations go that far back as well. And so really the work that we're doing with the neighborhood associations, the work that we're doing to get out in the community to host community conversations around major policy issues and initiatives that affect the community in the region.
Like housing, transportation, healthcare.
Childcare, all that, falls within that bucket of work that we're doing.
Right. So people might not even know that they live in a city, or if you live in Redwood City, that there are neighborhood associations. They're actually geographically defined. And most cities probably have these kinds of geographically defined neighborhoods. Tell us specifically about Redwood City, because you've redrawn some of the boundaries, if you will, to make more sense from a community engagement standpoint. How does someone find out what neighborhood they belong to?
So the city recognizes that the neighborhoods are the lifeblood of our community, and they contribute to the distinct, diverse character of the community itself.
They have very different personalities.
Yeah, most definitely. So the neighborhood associations go back almost 30 years, and we had 11 neighborhood associations at the time. And so basically the neighborhood associations were built upon just different neighborhood characteristics, natural boundaries, and so from there, it's kind of evolved over time now, because Redwood City is now looking at changing we have changed the neighborhood association boundaries to respond to the changing needs of the community.
Right.
So adding a new downtown neighborhood association, and then a Bear Island neighborhood association as well. And then really making neighborhood associations a little bit smaller. So we had 11 neighborhood associations for over 3 decades, and now we've gone from 11 to 17.
Right.
What we did in this process is really work with the City Council Communications Subcommittee and the Mayor and Vice Mayor to really synthesize 4 different maps. And those maps were the general plan map of identifying the number of neighborhoods that we had in Redwood City. It's looking at natural boundaries. It's looking at the planning department. The planners did a survey of neighborhood characteristics back in 2006, so using that document as well. And then using our existing neighborhood, or the old neighborhood association map that had 11 neighborhoods, and then the next door community, so the online community, and looking at their map and how that aligns with the neighborhood associations.
When you talk about character and natural boundaries, tell me a little bit about what that means.
So the character and natural boundaries, like a really good example would be our downtown, right?
Right.
It just being a whole new
Housing
neighborhood.
didn't exist 10 years ago.
No, it did not. And so now you have about
2,500
housing units that are going to be coming online over there, and people are living in those buildings in the downtown. And so that's created, and it was part of that downtown precise plan. And so there's the borders, and it was really identifiable of the downtown neighborhood itself. Or Bear Island, which is another new neighborhood on the east side of 101. As part of our bayfront over there, that's in itself its own neighborhood. Or Redwood Shores, or if we go all the way up to going west to Farm Hill. It's another.
I think what I appreciate most about the work that you're doing, not only within the neighborhood associations, but the work that's happening for neighborhood to get to know neighborhood. Because as you can imagine, if you're an established family that's lived in Redwood City for 50, 60 years and it's been on the hillside, and then all of a sudden there's this crowding of housing that are very tall and very different from what you grew up with in Redwood City, being a ranch style up in the hills. And now all of a sudden there's this different neighborhood, and you tend to think, who are those people, right? And yet you meet folks that live in that style of urban housing next to transportation corridors, and they are families too. They are folks that's the style of living that they prefer, and yet we all enjoy the same amenities of our downtown vibrancy, our local businesses, our schools, some of the community centers outside of our center, our neighborhood. So it's interesting to see the neighborhoods kind of gathering outside of themselves as well.
No, most definitely. And so there is, we are one city in itself. And so we are Redwood City. And we do have 17 different neighborhood associations. But it's really trying to preserve
17 different neighborhood cultures.
And that is correct. And what
styles of living.
And what is, what we firmly believe is really trying to preserve that small town feel of the community. And so the neighborhood associations really help with that and build community building, really grassroots from the ground up. So it's been really, really great to work with the neighborhood chair and co-chair for the neighborhood association, and just the work that they're doing street by street, neighbor by neighbor, to really build community. And it's not even, it's proactive community building. It's not in response to anything, but that proactive community building, when there is an emergency or if anything ever happens in the future and they need to be able to go and ask their neighbor for assistance, it really helps with that.
And I think it also helps to connect neighborhoods with city services, because we oftentimes think of public safety, of course, but we don't oftentimes think of public works. And yet, in times of rain or clearing storm drains are really important. And so to be able to connect with your public works directors and staff, and to know them when you host a neighborhood meeting and you get to meet who is in public works, and even park and rec. We oftentimes think of the large parks, but we don't realize how many open spaces and even pocket parks we have within the city, within a neighborhood. You might not even know it. So it's great to connect with those city services as well.
Yeah, most definitely. And so the neighborhood associations are really set up to really connect and kind of be a conduit to City Hall and the city. And really the city can respond to the unique needs of each neighborhood itself. And so at the neighborhood association level, at those meetings, we have all the different departments that can come out and represent themselves and really talk to the neighborhood about the issues and concerns that are needed.
And what's the spectrum of conversation?
So it can be from flood control issues to parking to fireworks. It just really runs the gamut of the different needs and issues. And it really depends on the different neighborhoods. But what's interesting is working collaboratively with all the neighborhood association chairs, there's a rich history. One neighborhood might have been dealing with this problem 20 years ago, and now this other neighborhood is now dealing with a problem, and really getting the leadership together. So we meet quarterly with the neighborhood association leaders, and they're able to connect and talk about the different challenges and how they work through the issues and working with the city as a partner.
And Nextdoor is an online community of conversations that you've actually drawn your boundaries to look at the Nextdoor boundaries, so that if I live in one neighborhood, that's the conversation that I'm having on Nextdoor, which is an online community app, if you will. So how have they changed what you do as a neighborhood association director for the city of Redwood City?
So really, what we're really trying to do is kind of, before all this great technology was on board, it was really going physically to meetings and holding those meetings and meeting your neighbors. And that still is very effective, and I think it is the most effective way. But ancillary to that, in addition to that, is really bridging the online community, so the next door community, with the physical world.
Right.
And so what we've done is we have a great partnership with Nextdoor, and when we realign this map, and as we're reinvigorating these neighborhood associations, we approached them and said, hey, can you realign your map to mirror the city's neighborhood, the city's neighborhood association map? And they've agreed to that. So it's a slow process, and they're getting towards there, but now they've added a downtown and a Bear Island. And so what it'll do is bridges the online and the physical world in a sense that the neighborhood association chair or co-chair and the Nextdoor lead can connect with one another, and it just really helps with disseminating out information and having those conversations as well.
Well, and very specific information, because I know for my neighborhood, I, through Nextdoor, got a piece of information from Chris Rasmussen, who is with the Redwood City Police Department, who said in our neighborhood there had been reported car thefts. So instead of broadcasting that to the entire city of Redwood City, it was very pertinent for my neighborhood to understand that these kinds of things are happening. So be aware, please lock your car, don't leave your thing. Although that information is, of course, important for everyone, it was very specific to my neighborhood.
Yeah, localized, really down to the streets, actually.
Right. So I think that
it's really effective.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Alex, for sharing with us. We'll direct everybody to the city's website to find out what neighborhood association that they belong to and to get involved.
Thank you so much for having me. And if the residents want to go online to the city's website, to the neighborhood association webpage, they can type in their address and find out exactly where they live and which neighborhood.
That's great. Thanks again, Alex. And thanks again for watching us here on Penn Voice, and we'll see you next time.